coming up next.
The trigger was this negative emotion, a hurt or a pain or something. So what you were getting from the pornography was
the release of that emotion. Because when you do the sexual act, it gives you that, the endorphins, the happies, the whatever. And when you're angry, you're frustrated, or you're just feeling anything negative, you want that. That's why anyone goes to any sort of addiction. They want release from whatever this painful thing is that they're feeling. They don't want to feel it anymore. So that became the way I trained my brain, was when you're feeling any sort of negative emotion, just go find a video to watch, take care of things, and you're done, and everything's better until the next time you need it.
Welcome to Faith Over Addiction podcast, where the chains of fixing and striving are broken and joy is rediscovered in Christ. You're here because you know there's more for you, a life beyond addiction's chaos, rooted in God's peace and promises. This is the place where Christian women like you learn to release the weight of fixing and striving and instead lean into God's strength to create a home filled with love, grace, and hope. She is clothed with strength and dignity. Proverbs 31:25. That's you. You may not feel like it yet, but you are stronger than you know. And God has so much more for you than carrying someone else's addiction. Here, we'll uncover how to set healthy boundaries with love and a little humor. Find resilience and grace in the messy moments of life. Celebrate small victories and embrace joy like never before. Lean into God's promises for restoration and strength, because He's not done with your story or your loved ones. This is your invitation to rise up, embrace your worth in God's kingdom, and take back what's been stolen by addiction: your peace, your joy, your future. Your faith is the foundation, and your boundaries are the bridge, and God's truth is your guide. I'm Tanya Gioia, your host and fellow traveler on this journey through the chaos of addiction. I'm here to cheer you on, equip you with tools that work, and share the truth that's changed my life. The joy of the Lord is your strength. Nehemiah 8:10. Together, we'll uncover how to create safe, loving space for healing, starting with your own heart and home. By setting boundaries, trusting God's plan, and embracing His truth, you can reclaim your joy, your peace, and your family's future. Then you will be able to stand firm for your family and legacy as a kingdom daughter, a woman who can laugh at the days to come, knowing her identity is secure in Christ. So grab a cup of coffee or tea and get comfortable. Let's walk this journey together. We're about to take back what's been stolen, create a safe, healing space for you and your family, and rediscover the joy God has waiting for you. Have you ever wondered why we don't talk about women and pornography? Hi, I'm Tanya. This is the Faith Over Addiction podcast. I'm here with Ana Murby. We are going to talk about a sensitive subject. So if you've got little ones, you may want to put on your headphones. We're also going to talk about your identity in Christ, which is what the Faith Over Addiction podcast is all about. So Ana, welcome. I understand that you write fiction, you play Fortnite with your kids and your husband, you've got 5 of them, and that also, by the blessed grace of Jesus, you are a person who has left the world of pornography and been redeemed. So share a little bit more about your story.
Well, I grew up in the church. I've been in the church since I was in a car seat, pretty much a baby. So I grew up being told this is what you do, this is what you don't do, and felt very legalistic, couldn't say certain things. We definitely didn't talk about this kind of subject. This was like sex is great when you're in marriage, but I was never told why only in marriage, or why is it great, but we're not allowed to talk about it anywhere. And I was very sheltered, wasn't allowed to listen to anything as a teenager other than like girl Christian music. DC Talk was bad and Skillet ended up being bad, but it's hilarious because now they're holding down the spiritual fort, so to speak. Because,
Absolutely.
and I'm like, that's very ironic, but okay, I'll take it because I still like them. But I never questioned anything that I believed. I just believed it because I was told by people in my life, my family, my friends, my church people. I just believed it because that's what I felt you had to do. If you doubted anything, maybe there's something wrong with you. Maybe you aren't a Christian. And that was always in the back of my mind. Am I really a believer? I
Mm.
always wondered that. I always wondered if I died today, would I actually go to heaven? Was God mad at me today because I did this or I said that? I didn't do this right. So I always tried to do the good things, the right things. And there was some abuses that happened throughout my life from various people in my life, and out of respect for them, I never bring up any specifics when I talk about this because I've made amends with most of them. Some of them I'm still able to have, I don't want a relationship with, but for lack of a better term, we've gotten to a place where we're both different. So I never disclose anything out of respect for them and their new life as well. But there were issues throughout my life that probably started leading me down a path where I was looking for pornography or just sexually stimulated more than I should have been for my age group. And I found myself, this is really going to date me. I found myself sitting in front of my TV, turning the dial, looking through the squiggles of the channels, and I'd occasionally find, I don't know if it was the Playboy channel or whatever, just like it was either that or it was just some other types of content that looked questionable. And it would be through
Mm-hmm.
squiggles, but I'd be sitting there and something about it, I just wanted to sit there and see it. I never did anything at that point about it. It did something to me.
Mm-hmm.
And, I found myself watching certain things and feeling those same feelings. And it just became a thing that, that's how it started, was just finding random stuff that wasn't overly, oh my goodness, what are you looking at? Get off the computer type of stuff. It was more just, it started off simple. I guess now we call it soft porn. And
Yes.
that's basically what that was, is that's what I was doing because it was overly innocent, something in a show or a movie that we were watching with my parents, they didn't know was going to be in there. They're like, whoa, later I might try to sneak and watch the movie by myself and see that part, and then maybe something would happen. At one point, my mom, I don't know how old I was, but I think we were visiting family, and she caught me doing something with myself that I'll just call the M word. I won't say it because I still can't. I'm like 40 something years old and I still can't say the word. But sh- she did not react the best.
Mm.
Her reaction made me feel like what I did was absolutely wrong, evil, I'm going to hell kind of feeling. She didn't
Mm-hmm.
say that, but that's how I felt. And after that point, I was like, if this is a thing that's going to happen to me, it has to be hidden. I
Mm.
can't let people see that this is actually happening or whatever, because whatever I'm doing is wrong and God hates it, family hates it, I hate it. I don't want anyone to know. So
Mm-hmm.
I got really good at hiding anything that I was doing, a little more sneaky, not letting it, roll off my shoulder or whatever. Oh, accidentally saw some naked stuff in a show. Oh, whatever. If I wanted to look at it later, I would try to find a way. As I became an adult and was able to do my own thing, had a smartphone, obviously I got into more of the other stuff, got deeper into things, started looking at stuff that I never would have participated in person should I have been in a situation like that. I started judging the people in the videos and talking about how horrible they were, at the same time hating myself for watching it because I knew it was wrong. I'd quote unquote repent after every time I did something about it. I'd delete my browse history so nobody ever knew I had this problem. It was not a thing that anyone knew was an issue for me. except for when I was married to my first and second husband. They knew because they also had those issues too. And it was just kind of like a joint, you do you, I do me stuff. You know, we just
Mm-hmm.
did our own thing, but we knew we had it. Aside from that, I don't believe my family knew.
Mm-hmm.
They never knew that I was struggling with this, that this was an issue for me. And it was also because it wasn't something that happened like certain addictions. You know, you might have to shoot up every day, you might have to drink every day. That's not what it was for me. I could go like months on end and not have a problem. And then some negative emotion, an anger fit or something would trigger me and I'd fall hard. Like I'd have a
Let's
really hard.
pause right there. The trigger was this negative emotion, a hurt or a pain or something. So what you were getting from the pornography was
The release of that emotion. Because when you do the sexual act, it gives you that, the endorphins, the happies, the whatever. And when you're angry, you're frustrated, or you're just feeling anything negative, you want that. That's why anyone goes to any sort of addiction. They want release from whatever this painful thing is that they're feeling. They don't want to feel it anymore. So that became the way I trained my brain, was when you're feeling any sort of negative emotion, just go find a video to watch, take care of things, and you're done, and everything's better until the next time you need it. And
is
sometimes
it
it didn't take long, sometimes it did.
is it similar to what happens with substance of you need more and more and more and more because the emotions are not stopping. You're still getting angry,
Hmm.
you're still getting frustrated. Life happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
So is it similar to that?
Oh, absolutely. It definitely was for me. Like I said, I went down rabbit trails of things that I saw, that I watched, that I would have never participated in as a person, that I look back on now and I go, wow, like, how did I get there? I've heard that there's a correlation between people who are considering themselves transgender now, who went to deep, dark places in their pornography addiction, like men specifically, and I could see how that might be a thing, because I was watching things that I knew were absolutely wrong, evil, disgusting. As I'm watching this, I'm feeling worse than I have ever felt before. And it's like, why am I watching this? Why do I want this? This is wrong. This is not right. Why am I watching this? But at the same time, my body's going, you need this. The other stuff sucks now. We can't do what we need to with that. We need more. So yeah, it is definitely like any sort of other addiction. And I don't want to say it's worse, because I definitely don't want to downplay any other one, because I mean, this one can kill you from the inside out, but drugs and alcohol can actually physically kill you as well. This one, I wouldn't necessarily say does that, but it kills a lot of other things mentally. It fries your brain. I mean, it took me a long time to get a lot of this stuff out of my brain, where it's not a thing where I'm just sitting doing something and something will just pop in my brain and I'm like, where did that come from? It doesn't happen nearly as much as it used to, but that used to always be there. It used to make it hard to be intimate with my husband. And it creates so many other areas where you just feel like you can do anything. At that point, why not? You've experienced this, you've done that in your mind. You just go to really dark places, and it is toxic, it is unhealthy, and it can kill you, just in a different way from, drugs or alcohol.
Where was God in your mind when all this is happening? Or where was your connection with God as you are struggling? Because really, you're struggling with the emotions. You found a relief that works. Where is God in this?
Well, there's threefold. So in the beginning, I was still trying to be the good girl. So I was going to church, I was still doing the things, but I was still doing this as well. And then I'd hate myself for it. And I'd judge the people who were making the content. If we drove by a strip club, I'd be like, oh, look at those people and call them names and judging. Meanwhile, I'm having a moment. So I'm going to go home and I'm going to look at the stuff. It was very hypocritical, is what I would call myself at the beginning of all this. Once the phone got involved, and once I was an adult and I was more in control of my life, quote unquote, in control, because after my first marriage, I went out of control and I decided I no longer wanted to follow God at all. So I just kind of abandoned him completely, moved to Connecticut from California, got married to my second husband, didn't fix anything from the first marriage, including this problem. And we just got involved in it heavy. And I wasn't following God at all at that point. I didn't care. I was doing my own thing. I was using language I shouldn't, did not have a filter. I came dangerously close to having a seared conscience. I would say probably I was like riding the fence on that. If there was a wind gust or a teeter, I could have just fallen into the seared conscience. Nothing ever would have bothered me again. I was like that dark, that angry, that I don't even know
Explain
how to
what that
explain it.
term means for you. What's this a seared conscience? Where do you see that?
I didn't care about anything. I wanted to tell my parents what I was doing wrong, not the pornography. I never told anybody about that. I just, when I was in the middle of going through my first divorce, if I was sleeping around with somebody, I would tell my parents about it because I wanted to see them squirm because I knew it would hurt. I wanted to, cuss in front of them. I wanted to do all these things. I wanted them to see me drinking heavy and, you know, doing some stuff, some marijuana with family, my brother who wasn't living for Christ. Like I just wanted them to see how hard I was rebelling as a young single mom now. My
Mhm.
daughter was there, not there with me during these things, but, I was a single mom. I should have been a single mom. I shouldn't have been trying to have my teenage rebellion at early 20s. But that's what I was doing because I felt controlled my whole life and I just wanted to stick it to everybody. And that included my family and that included God. So everything I knew was wrong, I was still doing it. And before God rescued me, I actually went to a church in Connecticut because I needed a break from my two kids that I had at that point. They were both under 5. I just needed a break because I was depressed, I was lonely, didn't fix anything from the first marriage, had this pornography addiction, low self-esteem, all these things. I wasn't living for Christ, and I was like feeling the guilt of that too, because in the back of my mind, I knew everything I was doing was wrong. And that if I died today, I knew I was going to hell. That's just how it was. So I was battling within myself that I knew what I needed to do, but I didn't want to do it because I wanted to do what I wanted to do. So I got to the church, I listened to the message, and it felt like God met me there, sat down across from me in a room, and it was just us two. And he was telling me what I needed to do to fix things. And then I just stood up, looked at him deadpan in the face, and said, I hear everything you're saying, but I'm still going to do what I want to do, and just left. And then a week later, that's when my second husband said, we're done. I'm moving out. I have an apartment already. And my world just completely crumbled. I was depressed, couldn't look at my son without crying, called his grandma and said, I need you to take my son for like a month. I can't function with him around. It hurts my heart too much. And she's the one who actually God used to pull me back, which is funny because she didn't really like me too much. And she was probably cheering on the fact that we were getting divorced, but God works in mysterious ways, right? So he used her and she said, Anna, you have to get over this. Whatever is going on between my son and you have kids and they need you. You need to get right with God. She's like, that's the only relationship that matters right now. So I got off the phone with her. I dropped to my knees and I repented and I asked him to help me. And I got up and I felt completely different. I felt for the first time in my life that I knew where I was going if I died right that minute. I felt a peace. I felt relaxed. I felt love for this man that I tried to save the marriage with, but it takes two. He didn't want it. That's fine because I got a wonderful man of God right now that I met at that church. So it didn't stop. My pornography unfortunately did not stop, but now I was in a new realm and I was trusting God with everything. I believed God when he said, if you stay in Connecticut, I will take care of you. You will be okay. I will always take care of you. And he has not stopped. So this was no different, but this was the big monkey on my back that I could not seem to get over no matter what I did. I knew I was still saved, but I still had that guilt and shame. But it was different. It wasn't, oh, now I'm going to hell. I know that. I knew I wasn't going to hell, but I still felt the guilt and shame, and I hated myself and I wanted to stop. I wanted to stop at this point. It was an actual, I want to stop. I can't keep doing this. This is unhealthy. I know it's wrong. I don't want this, but I couldn't stop because I had trained my brain too much.
What shifted? So the internal battle is raging, and this is what I see a lot with the women I work with, that an awareness that the person who is struggling with the addiction, the internal battle is even stronger than what they're trying to say to that person. Their guilt, their shame, that internal battle that's going on with them. And I should just keep doing bad things because I'm
Mm.
already bad. So it doesn't matter. When you heard that from your son's grandmother, what snapped? I mean, you had an experience with Jesus in the church and you walked away from him. But you heard this from another woman, another mom. What was it that shifted for you? Why did you drop to your knees? Why were you willing to hear?
I think it was because it came from her. I'm pretty sure that's the main
Someone who
reason.
didn't like you.
Yeah, and it's like God is not done talking to me. I clearly that's what it felt like is God is obviously not done talking to me. And yeah, like I just felt lost. I didn't know what to do, but I knew I needed Jesus. I knew that. And I had already had a couple women from that church who had started, sort of befriending me during that week. And between them and this situation with my former mother-in-law, that just solidified that God wasn't done with me yet. He's obviously wanting me back. And I think maybe it was just a little bit of what can it hurt, to give him another try. I've done everything else. I've done what I wanted to do and it sucks. I've tried to straddle the fence. It's not working. Who knows? Maybe completely surrendering to him, maybe that will work. Who
What
knows?
calmed what calmed the teenage rebellion so that you could surrender? That's the curious piece of, you knew what was important, but there was that part of you that said, no, I'm going to just spew nastiness in front of my parents and other people and all of this. But then this one woman, I think it's so precious that God often uses one person with a very simple message. And when you went to your knees, what was that like? What was that feeling like for you?
I was in tears, deep, dark tears. I just cried and told him everything as if he didn't know already. And I apologized for it all. I just let it all out. I let out how I felt, that I was hurting. I didn't want this. I understand why you did it, and I even apologized for shutting him out at the church. I I just let it all out and told him I want to follow you. I need help. I want to do what you want to do because I'm doing what I want to do and it's not working. So I just let go.
We say this statement in the addiction realm all the time of let go and let God. What does that really take?
It takes everything. It's not easy to do, especially in my situation. Like when I got up from there, I really felt strongly that God was telling me, stay here in Connecticut. Don't go back to California. I am going to take care of you now. Because my parents would always help me pick up any mess I had. When I
Mm,
went through my first divorce, I was living with my dad because him and my ex-husband and I could not afford to live on our own because he was a terrible person, but we won't go there.
mhm,
But we were living with my dad, so I stayed with my dad before I moved over to Connecticut. My dad always wanted to take care of me. I was his oldest child, his only daughter. He wanted to take care of me. But I really felt God saying, I'm going to take care of you now. You need to trust me in that. And that was a thing that I always had trouble with was trusting men, especially God. I always wondered, does he hate me because accidentally said heck instead of oh poop or something, like things like that. I didn't really cuss as a child. I had one stint in 8th grade where I did for a little bit and that was it. But I was always doing the good things, but I made mistakes. I
mm,
slept with my first husband before we got married and I felt awful for it. My grandpa made me feel awful for it. I just felt so much guilt from all the men in my life and to trust God completely that He was going to do what He said and take care of me when I had no family there. I had nothing there except for 2 women from church that I had only met a week ago. I had my 2 kids under 5 years old and a couple neighbors who didn't really know me that well, but they knew the situation that was going on. And of course, they're women, they're going to jump on my side. And maybe they were really on my side, maybe they weren't. I don't even know because they kind of knew him too. So it was just really unsettling for me to trust God. But I really felt that he was holding me and saying, I'm going to take care of you. You are going to be okay now. And that's what I told my dad basically. I just said, hey, dad, I can't go back to California. I'm staying here. I'm trusting God. He told me to stay. I'm going to do what he says. And my dad didn't like it, of course, because he didn't want to see me alone. So his wife came to stay with me. My stepmom came to stay with me for a little bit, help me get on my feet, find a new apartment. My one of my new friends that I had made, she was kind of like a mom figure. She'd help me through the whole process of the divorce. She went with me to all my court hearings. Like I just had people rally around me. I had people help me while I got on my feet because I was a stay-at-home mom, so I didn't have a job. I didn't have anyone to watch my kids, so they would help. It's just the church helped. Everyone started helping. I started seeing what God said that He was going to take care of me. And He did. He never stopped. He still hasn't. I mean, I have a wonderful husband. I have 3 kids with that wonderful husband. He's a great stepfather to my other 2. It, I mean, God helped me get over my addiction to pornography in an absolutely unconventional way, but full of so much love. And yeah, he has not backed out of what he said he was going to do. And I'm glad that I surrendered everything to him and allowed him to work. I had never done that before. I had always just blindly did what I was told. But at this point, I said, the only thing I'm going to blindly do is trust God.
mm. And the vulnerability you had to have to tell your newfound friends, the neighbors, I need help.
Mhm.
I'm in a place where I need help. Walk us through how God rescued you from pornography. You had already come into this vulnerability level, and now he's like, okay, I got a window.
Yeah. Well, it unfortunately it didn't happen until I was pregnant with my 3rd child. I was 8 months pregnant with her. So there was few years where I was still struggling with it. It was still like an on and off thing. My husband didn't know about it because I was still really good at hiding this issue. And it was getting to the point where, I could go months on end and not have a problem and then just hit hard for like maybe a week, and then I'd be good for another month or whatever. So that's another reason why it wasn't so obvious that I had this problem. But I don't remember what happened, but my second child, my son, was 4 at that time. And I was home with him. I was having a moment, angry for something, and I sent him to his nap a little bit early and told him, go to sleep. It's time for your nap. Mommy needs to go do something. And he's very good at listening at that point. He would, you tell him to go take your nap. He'd take his nap. He'd stay in bed. He didn't get up. Well, I was in my room scrolling on my phone looking for something, and then I just felt weird, like something or someone was behind me staring at me. So I turned around and my son's there. I snapped. I lost it on him. Obviously he probably didn't see anything on my screen, but just what I was looking at, I didn't want to think that maybe he saw it. So it just flipped out on him. He started crying. He ran back to his bed. I felt awful, swiped at it, everything, just sat there and felt the usual guilt shame spiral that I always did, the quote unquote repentant heart. And I didn't do anything during that time. I don't really remember what I did. I just kind of sat there and waited until he got up from his nap because I wanted to apologize to him. I just felt like a horrible mom, a horrible person, and I was just done with this addiction at this point. I was just like, God, I'm done. I can't keep doing this. I hate myself for it. I don't know what to do. So my son got up a few hours later and I said, Hey, you're usually really good at staying in bed. Why did you get up? And he just looked me in the eyes with his sad blue eyes and he said, Because God told me to find you. And I started crying. I hugged him and I said, I'm so glad you listened to what God asked you to do. And I couldn't sleep at all that night. I I was up all night crying so heavily that I woke my husband up and he asked what was wrong. And this was the first time that I had ever admitted to anyone, including myself. I said, I have an addiction to pornography. I gave him all my passwords, all my codes. I told him, you can check up on me anytime. I'm done with this. I can't deal with this anymore. I don't want it. I hate it. And just told him everything. And yeah, I mean, he never checked up on me. That's what I love about him is that he trusted that when I said that I was done. So he never really checked up on me, but I also told everybody and their mother, including my mother. I told everybody I could that I had this problem because I just wanted the accountability. Everyone who knew, the better, because then I knew I was going to stop because I wasn't going to let anybody down. So I just
Mm,
told everybody at church. I did a Bible study that dealt with this situation. And I just went gung ho on I'm not going to do anything. I didn't watch anything higher than like a PG rating. I think it was G at first and then
mhm.
slowly went to PG. But I didn't watch anything else. I only listened to Christian music. I set parameters on when I was going to use my computer. After a certain hour, I couldn't be on it. If I was home alone, I wasn't allowed to be on it. Like I put blockers on things. I just went hard on cutting myself off cold turkey to everything. And I started following a ministry called Triple X Church, and they
Mm,
work with women and men. And at that point in time, I don't know if they still do it, but they used to have conventions that they would go to, pornography conventions, and they would share the gospel with people. They'd hand out Bibles, they'd hand out shirts that says Jesus loves porn stars. And I just loved that idea. I thought that was the craziest, but the most awesome way to share the gospel. And I wanted to be a part of that. You had to be at least a year sober from your addiction to do it, and you had to raise a certain amount of money. I had raised the money. I was a year and a half sober, and I was like, I have to go. My husband was a little apprehensive just because I had not seen anything higher than PG for a long time, and I was going into the den, if you will, of all
mhm.
of it. So he was nervous, but he could see how much I wanted to do it. So he let me go. And I went for the New Jersey trip that they had. It was a 3-day event. And I was on fire. I was excited. I was nervous. And I was talking to the team. They could see how passionate I was about this whole thing. They wanted me to do an online group when we got back. We would situate. I was just really excited. I could see that God was going to do something amazing with this. And then all of a sudden, I felt nervous as I was getting closer to going in. My husband's like, I'm on my knees praying for you the whole time. I had a whole bunch of other people praying. But unfortunately, I was not as prayed up as I should have been for such a volatile type of situation. I was not used to being at any sort of ministry or missionary work. So I didn't know how deep you need to be in prayer and have other people in prayer. And that'll come into play in a little bit. But I was just nervous because I hadn't seen anything really overly terrible. And duty was probably the worst word I had heard in a year and a half. So I'm just like scared for what am I going to see? How am I going to react? So it's getting closer to the time of night, because this thing started at night. It got
Right.
closer to when we were going to go into the convention for the first night. And as soon as the doors opened, everything's in your face. They got computer cam girls, they've got naked people walking by. Like it's all there. Everything is there for your viewing creepiness. It's just there. Yeah. I don't want to say anything else, but that's what it was. Everything is there. They got booths, all that stuff. As soon as I walked in, I started crying. I just felt this broken heart. I felt the need for why we were there. I felt this overwhelming urge to just jump on one of the tables where they're doing webcam stuff and just screaming how much Jesus loves them and sharing the gospel with everybody who was listening, whether they were going to throw something at me or not. That's just what I felt. It's like
Mm.
we we need to be here is basically where I was. And of course, there weren't literal chains, but I heard chains breaking. And from that moment on, I had no desire for anything that was in there other than to see them freed from what I had
Mm.
been chained in. So I got to talk to people. I actually talked to this one woman who wasn't wearing a shirt at all while we were talking. And I got to share the gospel with her. She was crying, and we prayed, her and I and another woman. And I was just pumped. I was on fire. I was like, this is only night one. I cannot wait for the other two nights. And then that's when Satan was really angry because he had lost one. I was no longer bound by this sin anymore. God had
Right.
completely set me free. And he messed with me really good and worked on me and my husband to a point where I couldn't sleep at all that night. I was sick to my stomach and I had to go home early and work on things. Like it was just, it took me out basically. And
Mhm.
I felt lost for a while after that. I didn't know what I was supposed to do. I had all these ideas that I wanted to do. I wanted to go to strip clubs and share the gospel with them. And I wanted to do this online group with them. And I wanted to go on more of these trips. I just didn't know what to do. I felt completely lost. I was like, am I really just a mom now? Am I really just a wife? That was my thing. So eventually I talked to my pastor about how I was feeling. He was like, you're not just anything. Those are your
Mm.
ministries that
Yes.
God wants you to work on right now. And as you steward those well, He will give you more things to do. But you need to be focused on that because that is where it matters most right now.
Yes.
And it was a long, difficult process for me to get out of myself and to realize that, yes, these are ministries as I'm picking up toys for the bazillionth time today or folding laundry. Didn't I just wash this? That doesn't make any sense. But yeah, it was a process and, it's come full circle. Now I'm getting a chance again to share my story on podcasts and on my podcast. I'm getting to talk about this again. So it's like God has always been faithful and said, if you trust me, I will be there for you. And he has not stopped.
Amen. Tell us the name of your podcast.
Honest Christian Conversations.
So you can join her on Honest Christian Conversations wherever podcasts are, right? Apple,
Yes, yes.
Spotify,
It's on
Amazon,
YouTube now too. So,
and on YouTube.
yeah.
Amazing. I didn't even know they had those conventions or the Triple X Church or anything like that. What do we as a society believe about women and pornography that makes it harder for women to get the help they need?
We think it's a man's problem. I think that's the number one thing, is because everyone makes it seem like pornography is a man's problem. And I could see why, because men tend to be more visual. You know, if we're walking by a Victoria's Secret, the man's most likely going to look, not the woman, or if the woman looks, she's judging. But, you know, it's like we don't
Herself
usually,
and the
yeah,
models,
exactly.
right?
So it's like we don't respond to visual as much. And in my examples, I didn't respond to the visual in the same way that a man probably would have. It it's hard to explain, but it was like a business transaction for me. I was
Mm,
just there to get what I needed. Just give me what I need. I gotta go. I got things to do. You know, that's
mm,
just what it felt like. It's like I could be spending hours looking for quote unquote the perfect video and only watch a little bit, like not even a minute of it, because I was just there to get rid of this emotion. I'm gone.
mhm,
I mean, that's how it was for me. I don't know how it is for other women, because again, another reason why it's a problem is that a lot of women don't want to talk about it. And
mm,
I don't know if that's an unspoken thing that the world has made it like you can't talk about it, women, or if they're actually saying you can't talk about this, women, it's the men's problem. You know, it's there's just so many different reasons why women aren't talking about it, but we have to, because there's a lot of women who are struggling with this, even more so now that it's available practically anywhere at any
mhm,
point in time. And yeah, the church really needs to step up more too. And when we do discuss this in church, it can't just be talking about it from a men's perspective, because that puts in the head of a woman who's struggling with it that I'm even worse because this is a man's problem. What is wrong with
mm,
me? And
mm,
that's wrong, because that's not what it is. It's a human problem. We all have those urges. We all want to do these things. Why do we do it? Because it feels good.
mm,
I mean,
mm,
only in that moment, and then afterwards, you usually feel bad after. But you keep doing certain things because they feel good, because they make you happy, or whatever that good, positive emotion is. That's why you train your brain to do it.
mhm.
So, I mean, if you don't like something, you're not going to continue doing it unless I guess you can't really say that, because there's things that it's like, why do I keep doing this? I hate when I do this, but you still do it anyway. So there's got to be something there that you like about whatever it is
There's a
that you're
payoff.
still, yeah,
Yeah.
there's some sort of payoff exactly for whatever it is, whether you hate yourself for doing it or not. There's some sort of payoff you're getting that makes you keep going back. I mean, I love pizza. I could eat it all the time,
Sure.
but it's going to start growing on me literally if I do that. And at some point, I'm going to get really mad and say, oh, great. Now what am I going to do? And you're going to have to do something about that to get rid of the weight that you've gained from it. It's the same thing with anything. It feels good in the moment to eat a whole pizza, but afterwards, you're like, what did I just do? So,
Absolutely.
yeah,
What
when, go
so
ahead.
you went to the pornography for a fix for anger, frustration, hurt, emotions. How are you dealing with those emotions now?
Hmm.
Because you've said no more to what was fixing them, at least
Mhm.
temporarily. So how are you managing yourself presently?
I am being more open and honest with my husband, with myself, with God. I am very aware of the fact that he knows everything that's going on, and I can't hide anything from him, even if I wanted to. So I have decided I don't want to learn the hard way with certain things anymore, because it sucks. It really does. My whole
Yes.
life, I've learned things the hard way, and I don't want to do that anymore. So if I feel the slightest off about something, I take a step back and I go, okay, why am I feeling this way? What needs to be done to fix
Mhm.
this? And I'll do what I have to. And one of my biggest things is being honest. If I'm having a negative emotion, trying not to fly off the handle at my kids, realizing that I was a super selfish woman was one of the biggest things that has freed me up to where a lot of my anger has gone away, because I was bitter and angry because of how I was raised. I had a stay-at-home mom. My grandma was a stay-at-home grandma. This is just a thing that was in me, is that you get married, you have children, if you can, you stay home. This is just what I was told, is this is how you do it. But I never took the time as a young person to see, do I really want to do this? Or is this just what I was told? I just did what I was told. I did the things. And at some point in life, I realized I haven't actually got to figure out who I am as a person.
Mm.
That I've been everything for everyone else, and now I want to do what I want to do, and I can't, because I got a husband, I got kids, I got responsibilities. I can't just go to a pornography convention every year or whatever. It's going to affect somebody if I do in some way. I can't just sit and write a novel for a whole day, and neglect my children. I've got things to do. There's laundry piling up, they need to eat. So I just was really angry and bitter about that for a long time, is that this was thrust on me. I did this. But at the same time, I was getting told by friends and family that I'm such a good mom. I'm doing great. And, these are the things that happen. But I was beating myself up, because it's like, no, I don't feel like any of these things, because I know deep down how I really feel about being a mom. And I'm mad that I'm a mom, because I don't even know if I wanted to be a mom. I was just told you have to be a mom. So I had to let go of that past bitterness and realize it does not matter at this point how I got to where I am. God gave me the kids He gave me, and He gave me to them for a reason. And I need to accept that, let go of who I was or who I wanted to be, and accept what I am now, because these were choices that I made. And after I realized just how selfish I was through a very difficult situation that happened for my husband and I, that's how I got to this point where I surrendered, my complete surrender. And since I've been doing that, it's been a lot easier for me to, if I'm feeling frustrated or whatever, I will just come out and talk about it. And I've been working on having a more gentle response, even if my kids aren't. My blow ups are less and less. They're still there. I had one
Yeah.
this morning, but it wasn't a super over the top one. It was just more of a frustration of, why am I the only one who feels like I want to change? I want you all to change. I'm trying to help you. You constantly come back to me and say, so and so's doing this, they're doing that. And I give you all the help, but you don't take it, and I'm frustrated.
Mm.
That was the extent of my thing, is that
Mhm.
I get it. I know where you are. I've been there, done that. Would you please take my advice so that you don't have to live here anymore? So it's a constant process, but I have learned that if I am more open and honest, if I don't stuff my feelings down like I used to in my bottle until it's ready to pop, that everything is a lot easier. I've also learned that with being honest and open and vulnerable, I have nothing to hide, because when I feel like I'm hiding something, I'm more agitated, I'm more angry, I'm more snippy. I don't feel myself. I don't feel close to God. I can't get close to my husband. I can't get close to my kids. I just disconnect from everything. And I notice when that's happening now. And I don't like that feeling anymore. I don't want it, because I know what comes with that is bad things come with that. So if I start feeling distant or uncomfortable, or like things might be a little too easy right now, it's like, okay, well then what is going on? Why is this easy? Because I don't usually get easy. So is there something off here? And Satan's just going, oh yeah, she's right where I want her. And it's like, well, I don't want to be there. So I'm just really hyper aware now that I need to be honest, vulnerable, be aware of my surroundings, I guess you could say. I'm just more aware and in tune of, I need to stay close to God. And if not, I know what will happen if I don't. And I don't want to get to any sort of place where I could make another mistake. So I I call it a healthy fear because I don't live in a constant fear of, oh, I can't do this, or I can't watch that, or I can't listen to that. I don't live in that fear like I used to when it was more legalistic of this is what you do, this is what you don't do. And if you don't, you're bad. I don't feel that way anymore. And when I do, I remind myself that I am God's child. Look at how he has helped
Amen.
me through everything. And he loves me despite everything I did. He still tried to save me. So I know he loves me. He's not here to hurt me. So I just remind myself that, okay, so I didn't read my Bible this morning, or my prayer sounded like a squirrel running around in circles. He still loves me at that point. And it's okay if I choose to read my Bible tomorrow because my brain is super fried and I don't want to just give him whatever's left. So
Yes.
I've gotten to this point where I'm just more open and honest with myself, with everybody, allowing my husband to trust me for anything. If he's like, hey, can I look on your phone? I don't go, ooh, no, I got nothing to hide.
Mm-hmm.
And that is such a freeing feeling for me. Is like, I don't have anything to hide.
Sounds like you are also doing high level accountability from the skin in.
Hmm.
That you are really saying, okay, I am accountable to me and I am accountable to God, and I want all of you to help me to be witnesses to that, to be part of
Yeah.
that. Tell us again where your podcast is and how we can find you and talk to you a little bit more.
It's called Honest Christian Conversations. If you go to honestchristianconversations.com, you'll find my podcast. I've got blogs on there. You have a link to my novels that I wrote. There's freebies, all the episodes, everything's on there. But the podcast is everywhere pretty much. So,
Anna, thank you so much. And thank you for the story about your little blue-eyed angel who came and tapped you on the shoulder. How priceless and precious is that?
God's used him twice in miraculous ways. He also helped save his sister from getting hit by a car when he was probably not much older than 4. So,
Wow. Wow. We'll have to save that for another episode.
yes.
Thank you, Anna.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much for tuning into the Faith Over Addiction podcast. Remember, nothing changes until something changes. Today is your day to step out in faith and make a difference. You are a daughter of the King, a woman who can spark incredible ripple effects of hope and healing, not just in your own life, but in your family, your community, and God's kingdom. If this episode encouraged you, bless someone else by sharing it. Send it to a friend who needs a little hope, or post it on Instagram and tag me. I'd love to hear what resonated most with you. And hey, if you're ready to reclaim your God-given identity and create a safe, loving space for yourself and those you care about, let's talk. Book a quick call with me today, and I'd love to hear your story and help you take the next step. Oh, and don't forget to head over to Apple Podcasts, search for Faith Over Addiction, and leave me a review. Your feedback not only makes my day, but helps other women find this podcast and step into freedom too. You are strong, you are loved, and the joy of the Lord is your strength. Nehemiah 8:10. Until next time, keep walking boldly into the life God has for you.